Welcome to this module on level of detail expressions, or LODs. Just like basic expressions, LOD expressions allow you to compute values at the data source level and the visualization level. However, LOD expressions give you much more control on the level of granularity that you'd like to compute. They can be performed at a more granular level with the include, a less granular level with the exclude, or an entirely independent level at fixed. Let's start with the fixed calculations. In our population data set, you'll see this tab for fixed, and I want to show you what the calculation does before we go to create one. What a fixed calculation will do is really fix the calculation at the level that you specify. And in this, you can actually see that the fixed calculation is at the region level, and I'm averaging my population. So I don't necessarily need to have region in the view. But what it does is, if I add any more granularity to this view, that the values would be fixed at the region level. So if I were to drill into county, you'll see here that the values stay the same. So this is the average population for each region. If I were to take region off the view, those would still stay the same, and now I've sorted them by the region. To do that, you can right click and say sort. I want descending region, and this gets a little tricky since the region is a dimension, and it's kind of hard to think of dimensions as minimums and maximums. But this will give it to us clumped together kind of in alphabetical order. So you can see the first is east, and then middle, and the last is west. So I hit OK, and I see that there's still, I just see the three values. To create an LOD expression, you would set up the visualization. Say if I took this back off of my shelf and I took this off and I wanted to have my region count here, I would right click to create a calculation and create a calculation field. And the main purpose of an LOD is to replace maybe an existing measure that you're showing, like population. We're going to replace it with the region population, or maybe even the max population for that county. So let's just go ahead and create the same calculation we were looking at, population by region. So we want to call this region population, and let's go ahead and hit our little triangle over to the side. And once we think about what kind of view we want to build, that's really what it takes, is we know that we want to show a more granular level than we want to calculate at. So this is good if you are looking like at this level at different levels of region, or if you wanted, say, the average sales per customer or something like that. So let's go ahead and start typing. If you type, so we want fixed, you start typing fixed and you see the little formula sign and fixed. So let's hit tab. Now all LOD expressions are surrounded by brackets, curly braces. So if I start typing, I want to fix my calculation at a dimension level. So I want to fix this at the region level. And so I want the average population. That'll give us the region population. Hit apply, and we can make sure that it's set up to the correct aggregation. It defaults to sum. So let's pull region population onto the text, and that we see we're still getting that same result. If we wanted to change that perhaps to maybe the max, we'll get a max, but it's no longer really giving us the average. If we put our region on the shelf now, and we put our years. See, we get the same amount all the way across because we're only fixing this at the region. If we fix this at the region and the year, which we can do by separating with a comma, hit apply. And now you see that you're getting like the sum for each year is going to be different, but you get the same number all the way down the screen because you're not including the county. So if we add county to this, that actually gives us the same level of granularity that we have, so that we can see that the max population in this region for East is 461. So let's go ahead and take that county and even year back off the shelf. And that's why it's populating at 461. It's giving you the max for Knox County at the max year that they had. So once we put the year back on the shelf, and we see those values different each time, it's giving us the Knox County values for every county. So once we roll this up, we see really what the county is with the max population in each region. We can take year off the shelf. And that's a fixed calculation. Let's look at the include calculations. Include calculations compute values using specified dimensions in addition to whatever dimensions are in the view. Say in this, I would like to include the max county population per region, which is what we just built with a fixed calculation. But we're showing it here at this level, so we're including the county. You can usually get to the same calculations with any of these level of detail types. It's usually a little easier to get it with the fixed calculation. You can think of fixed as creating a filter in your data. Include is to show something else including into your data. Like at this point, we're including population. You see, and it looks this is the max population per region. We see that Knox County amount is the same as it was on this screen at once. And excluding actually is like filtering something out. So let's look at this calculation for include. This includes a dimension that's not included in the view. It's the same verbiage up here. This is a good idea. By the way, this is an excellent idea if you have more than one developer, or even if you touch this dashboard or workbook every now and then. Please comment your code. And so to comment your code, this doesn't show anywhere but this calculation. You can just make 2 slashes and then write your line, and you have to do the slashes before every line of commented text. So this calculation, it tells you here that it computes an aggregate using the specified dimensions and the view dimensions. Specified dimensions and the view dimensions. Okay, it's a little redundant. So let's look at exclude. So we get the same results. We understand that fixed is at the filter level. Include includes things that are not necessarily in the view, and exclude excludes things that are not in the view. So in this, I wanted to exclude the county in my average population. And what this does is actually work the same way as my fixed calculation does. So here, I'm excluding the county out of this view. So at this point, an excluding calculation is really good for financials. It's really helpful to declare dimensions or to omit things from the level of detail. They're useful for percents of total or differences from overall average scenarios. They're comparable to features like totals or reference lines. but they cannot be used in row level expressions because there are no dimensions to omit. You see here that it's actually calculating at an attribute level. So this means it's a little tricky, and it falls at another level in our operation or order of operations. It can be used to modify a view level calculation or anything in between. So you can use an exclude calculation to remove dimensions from some other level of detail expressions. That is it for excluding level of detail expressions. There's also another calculation for level of detail called table scoped level of detail, which actually operates the same as a fixed, but what you do is all you need to do is define the LOD at the table level without using any scoping keywords or any dimensions. So if I wanted to create a calculated field that shows me the average at this level of detail, then I can just call this, I'm going to call this table scope. And all you do is start typing your curly brackets and just do the latter part of the LOD, which is just the aggregation. So if I want the min population, I would do my aggregated calculation surrounded by my curly brackets. And what that'll do is give me my minimum population at the entire table. So if I drag that and replace region, I can see that even though it's a sum, I can see that my minimum population is 5,004. And you see it's the same across all regions. So if I were to roll this up to Tennessee, it would show the same. If I were to drill down into my counties, it would show the same thing. Even if I were to put my years across the shelves, it would be the same thing. This really goes, it's called table scope. It really goes across the entire table that you're viewing.